What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. I am your host, Kevin Brumley, and I am joined by my co-host, John. John, how you doing?
Doing all right today. How you doing today?
You know what, man? Not too bad. It's Friday, so I cannot complain.
Hey, days of the week don't even matter right now. I don't even.
You're 100% right.
No
I oftentimes forget what day of the week it actually is. Guys, we're breaking down the AFC North. We're starting off with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you guys should be just ecstatic about your season chances this year. Could be another ring coming back to Baltimore. So, Ravens, I want to hear your season prediction. Drop them in the comments. If you guys like the video, click like, subscribe. But I'm curious what the Ravens think they're going to do not only in the regular season, but do you guys think you guys are going to win a Super Bowl? Do you guys think you're going to make it out of the AFC? Let me know. So speaking of the Ravens, man, last year, I think they, blew people away. I think people knew Lamar Jackson could be special, but, I don't think people realized how special, right? They went 14-2, and then they got shocked in the playoffs. They played Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was in straight, God mode, just running over everybody, 10 yards a carry, and they end up getting bounced in the playoffs. But we look at, some of their additions and re-signings, Calais Campbell, which was, the rich get richer, right? They got him for practically nothing. Fluker. What's that?
Like a fifth-round pick?
Yeah, it was, crazy bargain. Unbelievable. DJ Fluker, Jimmy Smith, Ward, Matt Judon, they bring him back. Departures, Seth Roberts, not a huge loss. Hayden Hurst, which is an interesting one. He kind of never lived up to, his draft status. But they do run a 2, even 3 tight end sets. So it's going to be kind of interesting, if they have that second or third tight end, but it's not the end of the world. Chris Wormley, Michael Pierce, which I think might be – I always like Michael Pierce. I'm a Steelers fan, but I hated Michael Pierce because he's pretty good. Peanut, McPhee, Carr, Jefferson. So as far as additions and departures, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's so weird that some teams can get people why can the Patriots, teams that are doing well the Ravens, how can they get these free agents for nothing? It seems and these other teams that just struggle so much, how can some other team not get Calais Campbell for a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick? I don't know, stuff like that. Just it's crazy. But I like all the moves that they made in the off season. I think DaCosta is killing it for general managers. But bringing Earl Thomas, Mark Ingram last year, and then Campbell this year, they're looking like they're on the right path, and that's saying something, being that they were 14-2 last year. But I think the hardest person to replace will be Marshall Yonda. He retired. Because I guarantee he's a Hall of Famer. So I just think that interior lineman, that'll be the hardest to replace. What are you thinking about their offseason moves?
No, and I didn't even mention Yonda, and that's a huge one, man. Like you said, for a long time, he's been the best guard in the NFL. So that's always a tough one. I do think they have some pieces to replace him.
Yeah.
Are you going to get that level of Marshall Yonda? No, but who really can't replicate that level? When I was originally looking at some of their departures, they lost Pierce and Wormley. I'm like, oh man, that defensive line loses some depth, loses some talent. And then I was like, oh yeah, they got Calais Campbell. Wow, it's crazy. We go to their drafts and, the argument was they're a little weak at linebacker. So they go out and get Patrick Queen, a crazy freak of an athlete linebacker. Ingram was a little banged up toward the end of the year. So now we get even richer in the running back department with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
They get a Malik Harrison, who is a kind of an old school linebacker feel. He's going to be a great player there in Baltimore. So their draft, of course, as every year Baltimore does, they killed it. You know what I mean? As a Steelers fan, I always hate the Ravens draft. When they got Lamar Jackson, I was like, oh God, I don't want to play this guy for the next 10 plus years.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But they have 10 picks. I feel all their picks. I think J.K. Dobbins, did they really need him? To me, that's a little bit of a stretch, just because I feel the running back room's so crowded. But I mean, if you have the chance to get him in the second round, it's hard to pass that up just because, I mean, he seems like he's going to be such a, I mean, just that upper tier running back. He has the potential to be that. So, yeah, to me, they killed that draft as well. I mean, their whole offseason moves and their draft, like, I thought it was above average. But when I was looking at some of their grades, some people were giving it just like an average grade, which I didn't agree with. But, I mean, what do I know?
Yeah, I mean they lost talent. Don't get me wrong, but they were surprisingly deep. They're not just like starter heavy. They're a deep team. They have guys there on the wings, to eat into some of those things. So Dobbins was an interesting one because he's almost like a young Mark Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
But their running back room is crowded with Gus. I love I can't think of his name. Oh yeah, Justice Hill. Justice Hill, who I really really like. So you're kind of almost preparing for the future if Ingram retires or leaves.
Yeah.
You have the replacement, and plus you're still deep. I mean, I just don't think they could pass up in the second round getting Dobbins.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, that's a great point. It's just like when he's sitting there, and if they're going by like best available, you have to take him at what was it, like 55 or something like that.
Yeah, he was a guy. He was my favorite running back in the draft, and I was definitely hoping the Steelers got him. So again, so your thoughts of the roster as a whole? What are you thinking? Do they have any weaknesses? What do you kind of see?
I mean, I guess like their biggest weakness would just be wide receiver. I mean, we've seen like what Hollywood Brown can do, and I mean, if he stays healthy, he like a little banged up last year, and I guess you kind of always got to worry about that with some of those smaller guys. But I mean, I just think that'd be like, I mean, because the roster I think is so talented, I think that would be one of their weaknesses. I mean, but I think their strengths far outweigh that. I mean, their offensive line. I mean, well, I guess Marshall Yonda left, but I mean, it seems like they should be able to replace him like fairly decent. I mean, the running backs are clearly talented, and then their secondary is just gross.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. That's what I kind of had noted. Um, even their wide receivers, not that it's
Yeah.
thin, but it's in comparison to everything else that they have this riches in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Hollywood, I think, has the chance to be a really huge breakout candidate. Willie Snead's very solid. He's not going to blow you away with anything. Boykins is one of those players where he's an athletic freak. He could really step onto the scene, and they're not going to run a whole lot of 4 or 5 wide receiver sets.
Yeah.
If there's an injury or two to the wide receiver position for their top guys, then they could be in a little bit of trouble. But I mean, I just don't think it's going to really matter at the end of the day because, like I said, they're so deep everywhere else that it kind of becomes irrelevant.
Agreed. And I just wonder, like, are they going to let? I mean, Lamar didn't throw. I mean, compared to the rest of the NFL, didn't throw a ton. So I mean, will they let him air it out even more next year? I mean, this year, and then I mean that maybe I mean that's a problem with the wide receivers is they just don't see enough targets, and then seeing more targets could I mean just make it even better. I don't know. I mean, possible. I mean, just because I agree with you, like they do have talent at wide receiver, but I mean he just doesn't throw. They just don't throw a lot because they didn't need to.
Yeah, and I'm with you. So when I come into the biggest questions, is I'm going to talk about Lamar Jackson. We know Lamar Jackson is the greatest running quarterback ever. That's not me being a prisoner of the moment. Lamar Jackson is a freak of nature. Okay, so with him being a great running quarterback, the next step for him is can he be a 3 to 5 step drop back passer when needed? We saw in the Tennessee game, they fell behind early and they kind of are forced to get out of their style of play, right? Lamar's a good passer off the play action, when rolling, when the run's always a threat, but if they get down 14, 17, 21, whatever it is, can Lamar lead that comeback just off straight drop backs, straight out of the gun? I think that's the biggest question. You know what I mean? I have faith in Lamar Jackson being able to do it. I think he's actually a better passer than what most people think. But that is a question, man, because we haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that Titans game, I mean, that was probably the worst case scenario for them. I mean, falling behind early, and then a team, I mean, and probably one of the few teams that can just pound the ball down your throat and just run the clock out and keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands. I mean, most teams wouldn't have been able to do that. So, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think and he seems like someone that's just going to work his ass off in the offseason and get better passing. So I imagine if it's not this year and next year, year after, he's gonna be even better, like with a pocket presence and like that pocket passing.
And just a friendly reminder, Lamar Jackson is younger than Joe Burrow. I mean, this dude is still a pup. I mean, it's unbelievable. He just won MVP, and people are like, "Oh, he can't win the big one." Like, he's still young. He's younger than the first pick overall in the draft. You know what I mean? Like, they're crazy. How do the Ravens stack up in the North?
I don't see that. I mean, I think it would have to take a Lamar Jackson injury for them not to finish in the top two. I mean, other than that, I don't know what it would be that would kick them out of the top two, other than just them falling apart or something. But I don't see that happening. So I think it would be Lamar Jackson injury that really is the only thing that could take him down.
And you know what? That team's so good that even if Lamar Jackson, I hope he doesn't get hurt. But even if it was a Lamar Jackson injury, I still think they have a chance to finish first in the division. Like, that division's good too. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love Pittsburgh with Ben coming back. I think Cleveland's kind of flying a little bit under the radar, but that Ravens team's so good, man. I just don't think the talent's close to anybody in that division. What is your season prediction for the Baltimore Ravens?
So I have my predictions. I have them finishing first in the division, and then I have them taking a little step back. But I'm just finishing 12-4.
12-4.
Yeah.
So I also have a little bit of a step back, but I have 13-3. They're tough, man. And they're kind of the perfect team to play the Chiefs. You know what I mean? The Chiefs are the powerhouse, the face of the AFC, the face of the NFL right now, defending Super Bowl champs. Ravens are just a bad matchup for them, I think. And that's what I'm saying, man. When you're, main rival in the conference, you probably have the upside over them. That's tough. That's definitely tough.
I think the only reason I went 12-4 is I just think it's less indicative of what the Ravens are and more the Steelers will be better. I think the Browns will be better this year. So it's more those teams will play the Ravens better than what happened last year. So, I think nothing against the Ravens, but I just think other teams will play them tougher.
I think as a Ravens fan, you would take 12-4.
Yeah.
All right. So do you have any parting shots for the Baltimore Ravens?
This one was tough because I couldn't figure out. What do you Lamar wins MVP again? But it's just, I don't know. Without training camp, because I can't imagine it's going to be a super long training camp, whatever they figure out they're going to do with what's going on. But how hard it is going to be to scheme for Lamar Jackson for defensive coordinator. So, could he have even better season? Just because, without being able to practice, and you can't really practice against Lamar Jackson anyways, just because who are you going to put back there on your scout defense that's going to replicate him? So I don't know. I just think that'll be tough to scheme against him this year. So I could see all his stats going up again, and that's just ridiculous to say, but I think it's possible.
Oh, no. You're completely right because he has a whole nother level to reach. We're seeing him as a fairly raw pocket passer win MVP. He's only going to get better, guys. That's it. I'm sorry to break it to the rest of the NFL. So my parting shot's this. It's a question for you. So barring injury, why wouldn't the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year? Do you have any idea why? What would stop the Ravens from winning the Super Bowl barring injury?
Other than just falling behind, say an offense like the Chiefs. Just gets ahead early. We've seen them just be able to jump, score points in bunches. So other than that, and then just not being able to catch up, that'd be the only thing I would imagine.
Yeah, I think the Ravens have to be. I would take them as more of a favorite than the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Personally, I might put down a little bit of cash, maybe.
Yeah, you have them coming out of the AFC, going to the Super Bowl.
I think so.
I like
it. Guys, like I said, Raven Nation, drop your season prediction in the comments. Let us know what you think. And if you guys like the episode, click like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.